everyone. Alright, so in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to bring a scanned object like this into Zbrush and how to prepare it so that we can actually take it over to Substance Painter and we can start texturing it. So if you're interested in this process, stick around, and without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so in this video I'm going to demonstrate how you can basically take an object that you've downloaded online. Remember, keep in mind that you want to pay attention to the licensing as well so that you know how you can actually use these objects. So I'm on a website called mymanufacturer.com. It's a fantastic website if you want to find some free scanned objects. So this was created by SMK. It was 3D scanned by SMK. Check the link in the description or the top comment so you can go ahead and actually download this. And it's going to go ahead and download an STL file. And we can actually import STL files into ZBrush. So if you're going to ZBrush, you want to go to Z plugin. Right, you want to go to 3D Print Hub and go to Import STL file. Now I've got mine on the desktop over here. So here's my STL of David's head. Click on Open, and it's going to bring it into your 3D workspace. Now just click and drag this out into the workspace. I'm going to click on Edit and just hide my light box. And I'm going to change this to a basic, just one of the basic materials over here, just so I can see this better. Let me activate the floor. You can see it's lying on its side. I'm going to use the transpose master, hold on shift and just left click to rotate that in increments. There we go. So we've got the head of David in ZBrush, and you can see this is currently at 541,000 polygons, which is actually quite high for something this simple. But you can see it's really detailed as well. Anyway, I want to show you how to prepare an object like this and take it over to Substance Painter for some quick, dirty texturing. Okay, so if we click on Polyframe, you'll see that this is just a single object. And I'm actually going to add another poly group over here so that we can use the UV master and unwrap feature, which is just quickly going to unwrap this object, because we obviously can't take this over to Substance Painter if there's no UVs applied onto it. So to create an additional poly group on here, we can use a brush called the Slice Curve. So if you go to your brushes over here, go to S, you're looking for this brush over here called Slice Curve. Right, it says press Control Shift and keys and then click to use it. So I'm pressing Control Shift and I'm left clicking. You can see it activates Slice Curve. Now while I'm holding these buttons down and I just click and drag, I'll be able to create a slice like this, and then it automatically generates another poly group for me. So wherever you generate this new poly group, this is essentially where a seam is going to be visible. So sometimes you have to be strategic with where you actually create these poly groups. So in this case, let me just undo that. I actually am going to create this poly group over here by his neck. And there we go. So now we've got two poly groups, and we'll actually be able to unwrap this by referencing these two poly group regions. So right now I'm actually not going to unwrap this at 542,000 polygons. It's way too dense. I actually want to optimize this and reduce the polygon count. So we can use a feature in the Z plugin called Decimation Master, which is available over here. But before we decimate this, we don't want to lose these polygroups, because sometimes when you decimate, you actually tend to lose your polygroups, and that's going to make this whole process pointless. So you want to go up to Geometry, go to Modify Topology, and then make sure that whatever object you're using isn't subdivided. You want to click on this option called Unweld Groups Border. So it unwelds these two pieces, right? And that's basically going to allow us to retain these polygroups when we decimate this. So very handy feature. Now go down to the Decimation Master. Make sure you select Freeze Borders. And now we can go ahead and pre-process current. So it's going to analyze the mesh, pre-process our mesh. So this might take about a minute, and then we can go ahead and decimate this at a certain percentage. So I'll just wait for this to finish, and then I'll go ahead and decimate this. Okay, so the process is done. Now I'm going to bring my decimation amount to something quite low, like 10%. Click on decimate current. So now we're on 59,000. That's way better. That's a lot more optimized for Substance Painter. And now it looks like we lost our polygroups, right? It looks like this is just one polygroup. But if we scroll up over here and go to polygroups and then click on auto groups, it brings back both of our polygroups. And that's because, remember, under geometry, we used the unweld groups border. So that really saved our lives right now in order to retain these polygroups. Now you want to make sure you go back over here and actually click on weld points, so that it welds these 2 points together. So now we're good to go. We can actually unwrap this, do a very quick and dirty unwrapping under Z plugin. If you go to UV Master, you want to make sure you enable polygroups. So it's going to reference the polygroups over there. and then just click on unwrap. So depending on how complicated your model is, this process can actually take quite a bit of time. Sometimes it can take up to 5 or even 10 minutes just to unwrap the object. But because this model isn't very complex, and because we've reduced the polygon count significantly, it shouldn't take too long, maybe 2 minutes. But I'll resume after the unwrapping process is complete. Okay, so the process is nearly done, and I forgot to mention, if it looks like your ZBrush is hanging or it looks like you need to force quit the program, don't do that. Just be patient. Like I said, this process takes a little bit of time, so it's almost done. You can see it's unwrapping polygroup 1 of 2, but it should be done any minute now. I'll probably give it just 1 more minute, and then the object will be unwrapped. Okay, so there we go. This object is officially unwrapped, and if I go to Z plugin and flatten, you can see that we actually have this unwrapped. So there's the bottom section of David and the top. Now, while I'm still in this view, if I select transpose, so under T we have the transpose, and I hold on Control and I left click, I can select individual regions like this, and now you can see we've got one UV tile over here. So if I scale up these different regions, I'm basically increasing the resolution or the texel density. This is also a very nice way to reposition some of the UV'd pieces. Okay, but again, this is just going to be quick, dirty texturing. Right, obviously this is not going to be the most optimal unwrapping that we can get. But again, the whole process of doing this is something quick and dirty, getting it into Substance Painter, and then just rendering it with iRay. So once you've positioned your different islands like this, you want to just make sure you click on Z plugin and then click on unflatten. Now make sure you don't click on flatten again, because it's going to reset the size and position of all of these pieces. So I'll just click on unflatten, and now we are good to go. So this object is ready for Substance Painter. You can go ahead and export this out. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'll just call this low David, because this is the low poly, and click on save, and now we can head over to Substance Painter. In Substance Painter, you want to go to File, New. Over here by File, click on Select, and let's go ahead and select the low David, and then click on OK. So it's now going to import our David into Substance Painter. There we go, and we can see our UVs on the right hand side. So now over here you want to go to Texture Set Settings, scroll down until you find Bake Mesh Maps. So I'm going to bake my output size at 2K resolution. Obviously you can go up to 8K, it's completely up to you. I'm not going to be baking thickness. I will bake some curvature. I don't need ambient occlusion for the purpose of this. ID, this is really cool. If you go to the color source, you can actually choose Mesh ID Polygroup. So if you have a model with very specific polygroups on it, like let's say you created a polygroup just for the ear, you can apply an individual material just to that polygroup region. So I'm going to put the Mesh ID on Polygroup just to show you that I'll have these two regions separated. And then once you've done that, click on Bake Default Matte Mesh Maps, and it's going to bake all of these maps for us. Shouldn't take too long. And there we go. So now this is ready for painting. And you can see over here, we've got normal, ID, position, curvature. Now if I go to layers, and just quickly if I go to materials, and let me just grab a default material like Brass Pure. Obviously it's going to apply the Brass Pure onto the entire model. And now if I right click, I can go to Add Mask with Color Selection, and if I go to Pick Color, you can see we have those individual polygroups. So if I wanted to, I could just have gold on his face, and this is where the polygroups from ZBrush really come in handy. Okay, but I'm going to undo that, but I thought I'd just show you quickly. So now you can obviously drag whatever materials you want in here. So maybe there's some gold, and then maybe some aluminium. Then I can right click over here, add a black mask, and I can use some of these awesome brushes that they include in Substance Painter. So there's a large library over here. You can select whatever you want, and because I created a black mask, wherever I paint on right now, let me just zoom in, you can see it's painting on, let me choose maybe a different brush. You can see it's painting on using the aluminium that's underneath. So maybe this aluminium is not that much visible right now. Let me just change the color. There we go. So now we can add some vandalism or graffiti onto this David statue. Right, maybe draw a smiley face over here. Maybe, oh yeah, probably I shouldn't do that. But yeah, there we go. So now you can start painting on the statue, and you can paint freely. And this is what I love about Substance Painter, is that you have so much freedom and creativity when it comes to actually texturing these models. So there we go. Right, so something I also tend to do is I go to the display settings and I change my environment map over here. By default, this is on, I think, Panorama. Oh yeah, it's on Panorama. I change mine to Tomako Studio. Just I feel the lighting is a little bit more dramatic and looks a little bit better. And then let's maybe go to the materials. And since this is a statue, let's maybe look for something like this concrete. Right, so concrete bear. Drag and drop that over there. Now you'll notice that the quality of the map itself doesn't look that great right now, so we can reduce the size of this because this map is tileable. If you select concrete base, and over here by properties, by the scale, you'll see if I start increasing this, it starts tiling. Okay, and also we're currently viewing this under texture set settings. By default, this is on 1024, but you can go to the actual size that you bake this at, which I bake mine at 2K. And now we can see this a lot better. Okay, and we can also see that seam line over here on the neck, but because this is a statue, this actually doesn't look like it's actually an error. It kind of looks like it's a crack that's visible by the neck region. But if you're using another model, like I said, you'd have to be strategic with where you place your polygroups. So there we go. I can get the stone material on David, and now let's say that we actually want to apply some graffiti. So someone got their hands on this David statue and they're actually going to go ahead and start vandalizing it. So I can go down over here to materials, maybe grab something like this plastic glass, drag and drop it over there, and then if I right click and add a black mask, now wherever I paint, it's going to paint in this color. And then I can go to the alphas. So if I want to, you can see there's some really cool alphas over here, like maybe we want something like a smudge, right? All I need to do is just click and it's going to apply that smudge onto the region like that. So really cool. You can see there's some awesome alphas over here, like we have drip alphas. So this would make sense with someone that's maybe vandalizing a statue. There's been some drippage from the spray can. You can see you get some of that drippage over there. So get creative when it comes to texturing. I'm just showing you what is possible with Substance Painter. It's an amazing, absolutely amazing piece of software. So just get creative. And then they have these awesome brushes in here called particle brushes, which are basically animated brushes. So if I choose something like leaks and I start clicking and dragging over here, you can see that it's like dynamically creating this drippage on that region. If I increase the size here maybe a little bit, you can see it starts applying these particles. Oh, let's just make sure I'm actually selecting this correctly. Yeah, there we go. Starts applying these particles onto that region and it's dynamically creating drippage. So you can use alphas or the actual leaks particle brush. So super awesome stuff in Substance Painter. And then let's say you wanted to add some additional dirt onto the statue. If I go to my materials and let's say let's choose this concrete simple, drag it on top, and we go to the smart masks. So because we baked let me just look at the terminology again. We baked a curvature. It's going to apply some dirt into like the crevices on this model. So if I go back to layers over here, if I drag and drop one of these smart masks, depending on what we want it to actually look like let's say we want this on okay, cavity rust, just drag and drop that on there. Might be a little bit hard to see right now. Let me just select this and let's maybe change the dirt color to something else. Okay, this actually isn't that visible right now on this model. Let me choose another material quickly. So I'll just choose, let me go to materials. I'll choose, actually I want something that's going to be like really dark. So you know what, I'll take another plastic gloss, but just make this completely black and then go to my smart masks, drag and drop the cavity rust. Okay, there we go. Now you can see it over there in the crevices. So that's how this mask works, and you can just drag and drop this over here, maybe undo that, try a different one and see the different results you get. So with this turned off, with it turned on, you can see what it's doing over here on the model. It's on all of those edges and crevices of the statue. So it's a nice way to add some additional dirt and detail on here. And then if you go on to the actual mask, the metal edgeware over here, and select that, you can access some additional features over here that's unique to that smart mask. So experiment. That's the whole point of creating art. Just get creative, experiment, see what you can come up with texturing. But I think this is super cool. If you're trying to do some 3D concept art, you've sculpted something in ZBrush, but you want to apply some really nice realistic texturing, you can do that very quickly with Substance Painter. Alright, and also keep in mind, you'll notice that with some of these materials, they actually have height applied to them with this normal, and that's because of this concrete base over here. And you can see I can enable and disable the height, so I can see how this actually looks. So if you want something that's completely clean like this, with no normal map detail, you just need to disable the height. Right, and you can even change, if you don't want to use the default UVs on here, you can try something like triplanar projection, and you can use this to map some of the different details on your object as well. So there's a lot of different options in here. This isn't an in-depth guide to Substance Painter. I just wanted to show you what's possible. Right, you can also decrease and play around with some of these settings over here. Right, maybe you don't want roughness. Just go ahead and experiment. And sometimes if you've got a material over here like this blue, if I wanted to, you remember we can actually change these layering modes. It's very similar to Photoshop, but what's really cool, if you go to this normal map combine, it almost takes like the normal map colors and detail and combines it with this concrete base, just to give you like this varied textured result. You can see trying it with different ones over here. It's just changing the color over there, but you can see what it did to the rest of the model, right? And yeah, it's really cool. Just experiment, guys. That's the whole point of this stuff. You need to experiment. And there we go. I'm actually going to put that on normal map combine. And then when you're ready, let's say you finish texturing, you just click on this icon to head over to iRay. And this is where you can actually get a nice, this is what that image you saw previously, what I was trying to texture earlier on. You head over to iRay here, and I change my environment map to Tomako. Okay, I basically clicked on clear color just so I don't have a background. I disable the ground, and I change my focal length over here to something, because like this, I don't really like the focal length over here, because if I'm trying to frame this like a portrait, I want to increase that focal length. And you can play around with some additional settings. You can see you can add some color correction, depth of field, and all of that. And then once you're ready, you can save that out as a render. And then you've got something that's textured. It's got this incredible realistic texturing that's done in Substance Painter. It's fantastic. You can show it from multiple angles. If you're on a job and you want to show someone what the model could look like if it was actually textured with some really nice materials. So it's fantastic for doing 3D concept art. Okay. Alright, so I'm just having some more fun texturing. Just one more tip. Over here I've got the concrete texture. Remember, I used the smart mask to add some dirt into like the cavity regions. Over here I used a material gold. But if you select the material, if you want to, you can also scroll down, make sure you select height. So this is just the basic gold. And I can actually apply some height onto these brush strokes. So now it almost looks like this brush stroke has some depth or additional detail applied onto it, right? Maybe if it was going to look like something like clay, or yeah, even like something like clay. If you want to add some additional detail to those painted regions, that's a really nice way to add some height. And I simply just used under the alphas, I used the handprint somewhere over here. I just used one of these handprints and just placed it randomly, and it almost created like these smudges. So I thought that looks pretty cool. And if you don't want to render in iRay, you can always go to File. You can export the textures out. Okay, you first want to make sure under texture settings that you put this on the resolution that you want. Then you can go to File, Export Textures. Okay, and you can choose your output templates. I use the PBR Metal Rough. Right, it gives me these maps: roughness, normal, height, base color. Then you can simply click on export, and it's going to export out the maps for you. Okay, so you can see just how useful this can be for applying some quick textures onto your 3D models from Zbrush. I think it's a really handy method. So let me know what you think. I know this is a very simple model. If you're doing something a little bit more complex, let me know if you're encountering any issues as well. I'll try my best to help you out. But I thought I'll just show you that this is possible, and it's fun. This program is really fun to use. Okay, so thank you so much for watching my videos and tutorials. I truly appreciate the support on this channel, and goodbye.